The military weaponry we know, what we might call common, in itself is capable of causing destruction at overwhelming levels. But there is a certain number of weapons that we do not know, that governments hide from us. But what is really disturbing are the military tests that are carried out behind closed doors, in which weapons are tested that would only be seen in science fiction films. Weapons that, by all accounts, would terribly tip the scales to one side. These are the most horrifying military experiments. The Chameleon Suit. First, we came across a video that the Japanese government tried with all its might to remove from the internet. No one knows how it reached the cyber world, although many speculate that someone in high command uploaded it with the intention of revealing state secrets. The video begins with a close-up of what looks like a new suit for special forces. At first, we can see that the suit itself is covered with tiny crystals or mirrors. When the shot moves away, we begin to better understand its function: camouflage. But this isn't just any camouflage, it's invisibility. That's right, the suit is capable of making you invisible. From what you can see in the video, the small crystals reflect the surrounding environment, which makes the person wearing the suit practically become a blur, very difficult to distinguish. However, it is possible, albeit amazing, that each crystal is a screen that reproduces what is behind the soldier, very much in the style of a chameleon or an octopus. From the quality of the video, some people deduce that it dates back to the 1980s, which makes you wonder, if the Japanese army already had that technology back then, what do they have today? The answer could certainly be spooky. The atomic hand grenade. Would you believe it if you heard that in the 1950s, the US government created a handheld nuclear bomb? The nuclear grenade was created with a special mixture of certain elements called isomers. The handheld atomic bomb was designed to destroy the shielding of heavy vehicles. A single isomer has the power of 20 tons of conventional explosives. That's an alarming amount of power. So much so that it was never taken to the battlefield because there was no way for the soldier who threw it to come out unharmed. Imagine for a moment the range of the explosion and the chaos such a weapon could cause in enemy ranks. It would pulverize them. Literally, not even the ashes would be left to rummage through the remains. America's suicide pilots. At the beginning of the Cold War, the greatest fear of both Americans and Russians was to receive a nuclear attack from the enemy. The Americans, in order to take the lead, began training certain pilots in terrifying tactics. At that time, no bomber could carry enough fuel to go to Russia, drop a bomb, and return, so they decided to resort to the Japanese method, kamikazes. The idea was that the pilots would carry their loads and never return. They would crash the bomber directly against its target, carrying an atomic bomb that would kill all life for several kilometers around. Luckily for the pilots, it wasn't long before they invented the B-37 and B-47 models, bombers capable of going to the other side of the world and returning without having to refuel. And fortunately for the rest of the planet, during the Cold War, no atomic bomb was dropped on Russian or American territory. The nuclear-powered nuclear bomber. The government of the United States had, among its war projects, a particularly ambitious one. The idea was to create an aircraft of monumental size that could be kept in flight for weeks, and that would also serve as an aircraft carrier and base of operations. The fuel? Nuclear power. For that, it was necessary to carry on board nuclear reactors that would give it enough energy to stay in the air. The reactors had to be operated and maintained by 3 squadrons of specialists in constant rotation. To make matters worse, these specialists and the rest of the crew needed bedrooms, bathrooms, a dining room, a kitchen, and, naturally, a comfortable work area. Of course, there were problems. It had to be kept in mind that the more time the aircraft spent in the air, the more time the crew would be exposed to the deadly radiation from the nuclear reactors. The only way to keep them safe was to protect them with 12 tons of lead, which was obviously not feasible for aerodynamic purposes. In addition, when the aircraft was on the ground, a hangar at least the size of a football field would be needed to store it. Not to mention that it would also need a 5-kilometer runway to take off. Finally, with such a large object very difficult to pilot, the chances of a plane crash were worryingly high. If such a vehicle crashed, it could cause a catastrophe of the magnitude of Chernobyl, or even worse. The Pentagon soon abandoned the project altogether, at least as far as we know. So for now, you won't see aircraft carriers like the Avengers. You'll have to settle for what you see in the cinema. But seeing how things are going, it won't take many more years to get the project on track.